So as the old year fades into the new, let's take a look at my resolutions from 2015 and make some for 2016. I had 4 reading resolutions for 2015. The first one was read 100 books. I did it! I got behind a couple of times, but never very far, and also in January I read like 14 books and totally got ahead. So that went pretty well. I actually read 103 books this year. I considered telling you what they all were, but that seemed like a bad idea. So if you want to know, look at my monthly wrap-ups, or I will have a link to all the list of everything on the Goodreads page. My next resolution was pretty simple, and that was to read Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. I am a big Thomas Hardy fan, and I had never read his most famous book, so I was like, I should probably do that. And then I actually ended up reading 5 Thomas Hardys this year: Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Under the Greenwood Tree, 2 on a Tower, The Woodlanders, and The Well-Beloved. And he's so good, guys. I adore Thomas Hardy. So I've now read all of his sort of key important novels except for The Mayor of Casterbridge. And then my next goal was to read 5 classic novels, which, since I read 5 Thomas Hardys, I kind of blew out of the water. I don't know why I thought I wasn't going to read that many classics and I needed like a resolution to motivate myself, but I guess I did. So even if you just count classic novels as novels published before 1900, I read a bunch. I'm gonna have to read them because I have not memorized it. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Under the Greenwood Tree, Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Pamela or Virtue Rewarded by Samuel Richardson, The Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens, 2 on a Tower, The Grey Woman by Elizabeth Gaskell, L'Histoire de la Marquise de Banneville by a whole bunch of French people, Emma, the unfinished novel by Charlotte Bronte, Cousin Phyllis by Elizabeth Gaskell, The Woodlanders, and The Well-Beloved by Thomas Hardy, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. So that's 14 classics, and I didn't even count the Shakespeare plays. So I'm 3 for 3 so far. What was my last resolution? Say it with me now. Read the entire Discworld series. I did not do that one. Honestly, I thought this would be so easy. There's 41 Discworld novels, and I was reading 100 books. Less than half of them had to be Discworld novels, but there's just so many other good books that I wanted to read. I ended up reading 13 of 41, which isn't even particularly impressive. I did the entire Rincewind series and all of the Witches series except for the last one, Carpe Jugulum. And these were some of his shortest books, so... So, 2016, I have some new goals. I'm keeping the read 100 books. I feel like I can do that again. And then this year, I am going to finish the Discworld series. There's only, 28 left? Maybe I will allow myself to listen to some audiobooks, because Stephen Briggs does really good audiobooks for the ones that he's done. He's done most of the recent ones, I think. I also want to read 5 books by Daphne du Maurier. Daphne du Maurier, of course, is my favorite author, but I've only read 2 of her books, Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel, which is a little silly. I currently own 4 of her books. Here's Rebecca, which I have read like over a dozen times now if you count audiobooks, so I'm not like desperately needing to read this again. I've kind of memorized it at this point. But I think it might be time to reread My Cousin Rachel, which I've only read twice. Then I also have The Infernal World of Branwell Bronte, which is her biography of Branwell Bronte. I also have a collection of her short stories called Don't Look Now. I've actually read one of them. I believe it was the shortest one. Yeah, La Sainte Vierge. This collection does contain the short story The Birds, which is what Alfred Hitchcock used to inspire his film. And then my very recently acquired The House on the Strand, which I always conflate with her first novel, The Loving Spirit. So let me just check what this one's about. Oh, this is the time travel one. Okay. So this is set in the modern day from when it was published, which I think is the 60s. But it's about this chemical that you can drink, and it transports you into the 14th century, but if you ever touch anyone in that time period, you are immediately transported back into the present. And this is about a man who kind of gets addicted to that. And then I need one more to get to 5 since I'm probably not going to read Rebecca. The other 2 big famous ones that she's written that I'm interested in are Jamaica Inn and Frenchman's Creek. But The Scapegoat also sounds intriguing. It's about an Englishman who goes, I think he goes to France, and while he's waiting in a train station, he finds a guy who looks uncannily similar to him, and they have like the sort of equivalent names. I can't remember what it is. I think it's like John and Jean. And then they share a hotel room, and when he wakes up, the Frenchman has stolen all of his stuff and disappeared, and now he has to pretend to be the Frenchman and deal with his like crazy family situation. That's amazing. And then regarding my final resolution for 2016, I read a lot of 19th century literature, and by that I mean stuff that was written in the 19th century, stuff that is imitating 19th century works, stuff that is set in the 19th century or a fantastical imitation thereof, and stuff that, while not actually about the 19th century, is definitely influenced by its themes and trends. But I want to branch out a little bit further from the 19th century, so my final resolution is to read 5 historical fiction novels, not historical fantasy, but like straight up realistic historical fiction that is set before 1800. So I have a couple of things that I already owned. I've also borrowed some things from my mom, and there are some options on Scribd. So I'm just going to let you know what I have. It's more than 5, which is good because some of these are stupid long, and I don't think I could get through them. So if you have any opinions on the stuff that I am mentioning, vis-a-vis it's really bad, let me know. And if you have any other suggestions for historical fiction that is 18th century and earlier, please let me know. I'm going to give this to you in chronological order, but that's not necessarily the order that I would read them in. So first we have The First Man in Rome by Colleen Mccullough. It is so long. This is set in the closing days of Republican Rome from 110 BCE to 100 BCE, and it is about Marius and Sulla. I don't really know what part of their lives the books are covering, but I majored in the classics, so I know a bit about Marius and Sulla, although I didn't really focus on Republican Rome because, boring. And their rivalry is kind of what kickstarted the civil wars in Rome. It carried on through Caesar and Pompey and Augustus and, I was about to say Augustus and Octavian. He is both of those people. Augustus and Mark Antony, and eventually led to the Republican system being kind of thrown out the window and being replaced with an emperor. Then, I don't own this one, but an option is Here Be Dragons by Susan Penman Kay. This is set in the 13th century, and it's about the daughter of King John, who marries a Welsh king, and England and Wales are at wars at this time, which makes her life kind of complicated. Then my next option is The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. Philippa Gregory is a really big deal in the world of historical fiction, so I thought I needed to read something by her. Her most famous book is The Other Boleyn Girl. My mom has actually read that, and she didn't really like it. It was kind of too pedophile-y for her. And I read the first, couple pages, and I was like, meh, this might be fine. So The White Queen was the first book that was published in her Cousins' War series, which is about the Wars of the Roses, and it's about Elizabeth Woodville. Next up is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This is getting some buzz right now because it's been turned into a miniseries with Mark Gatiss. What else do people need? This is about Thomas Cromwell, who helped Henry VIII get a divorce from his first wife so that he could marry Anne Boleyn. Then more Tudors, it never stops. This is the autobiography of Henry VIII with notes by his fool Will Sommers. Do not let the skinny pages fool you. This is over 900 pages. I believe this covers the entire life of Henry VIII. It definitely starts when he was a child, when his father was still king, possibly before his brother died. And I'm not sure how far it goes to the end because I didn't really want to be skimming the last pages lest there be spoilers. Although that is the thing about historical fiction, it's kind of hard to have spoilers because it already happened. And then this is Bitter Greens by Kate Forsyth. This is about the author of the original Rapunzel fairy tale. Charlotte Rose de la Force, which I find really difficult to say in a French accent, so I'm just going to say it in an American accent, even though she is a French woman. She was at the court of Versailles and then had to leave for some personal reasons, and so she goes to a nunnery where a nun tells her the story of this Venetian artist's model and possibly also prostitute, who is kind of the witch in the Cinderella story, not the Cinderella story, the Rapunzel story, which inspired Charlotte Rose to write the Rapunzel story. And then we have The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. This is set in the Netherlands at the end of the 17th century. It's about a young woman whose father dies, and so she has to go marry this older man in Amsterdam who has a very annoying sister. And as a wedding present, or possibly just a general present, he gets her a miniature sort of doll's house of their home, with all of the same like little mannequins of the people and little mini versions of all of their stuff. And there is a miniaturist of the title who is making all of these things for the house. But then things get creepy, and I'm not exactly sure what goes down, but like the stuff in the house changes, in the mini house changes, and this reflects changes in the real house. Woo. And then finally, I'm looking at reading The Fair Fight by Anna Freeman, which is set in the 40s and is about female bare-knuckle boxers. What more do you need to know? There's a video of Anna Freeman doing a very entertaining little speech or possibly pitch about her book, which I will link in the doobly-doo. So, all this is to say that my resolutions for 2016 are to read 100 books, to read 5 books by Daphne du Maurier, to read 5 pre-1800s historical fiction, and to finish the Discworld series. It's gonna happen this year. I can feel it. Let me know what your resolutions are, and if you have made a video about what your resolutions are, please link it below. I would love to watch it. And good luck to you all. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, 2 on a tower under the greenwood tree. What do you want, Nova? What do you want, Nova? Oh, Nova. You're gonna, Nova, I can't film. I know.